Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Momentum Software Solutions Customer Forum for MYOB Advanced for November 22. Still people joining, but we're going to make a start right away. I certainly appreciate everybody attending today. So I'm just going to recap on a little bit of webinar etiquette. So if you don't mind, please mute your microphone. It just helps us to prevent any background noise coming through the audio while we're presenting. Having said that, feel free to ask any questions. You can do that a couple of different ways. You can unmute yourself and ask, or pop something into the Q&A chat. And there's also a raise your hand icon. So the agenda for this afternoon, we've got a lot of content for you, and the intention is it's meaningful and useful to you. My name's Al Emery, Managing Director at Momentum. So for those who don't know me, afternoon. And this afternoon, I'm going to give you an update on what we're doing at Momentum. Then following on from that, we have a guest speaker from MYOB, James Wishart, who's a Senior Product Manager at MYOB, and he'll be giving an update on MYOB and in particular MYOB Advanced, which I'm sure you're all interested to know. Following that, we have Ian Dunn. Ian is our Service Delivery Manager at Momentum, been with us 4 months now, and he'll introduce himself and give you an update on our service delivery process at Momentum. Then I'm going to swing back in and do a live demonstration on a number of the key features in the 2022.1 spring release, which is the major release coming shortly to you all. After that, we'll meet the Momentum team. So a lot of our consultants are on the session this afternoon. It's always a good opportunity to put a face to the name for those that you may not have met in person. Our Customer Success Manager, David, will be taking through a presentation on best process from a CRM perspective. Then we have one of our senior consultants, Nicola, with a training session on a number of aspects of MYOB Advanced that you'll be able to make note of, as well as watch on the video later on. And finally, we have Chris Miller, Director of Velixo, and he's going to be taking us through particularly some of the newer enhancements to the Velixo Excel-based BI tool for MYOB Advanced, and some Q&A at the end. So a quick update from me on Momentum and our last 12 months that's of interest to you all. So Momentum is very much a growing business. Our total client base exceeds over 250 customers, predominantly around Queensland, but in reality all around Australia and some international. We have considerably expanded our manufacturing and construction expertise, partly by implementing a very high number of both manufacturing and construction businesses over the last 12 months, as well as a lot of internal training. We increased our consulting team to over 30 people, so our total business is about 40 now, and 30 consultants on the team delivering implementations, projects, technical development and support. We launched the MYOB Advanced Bootcamp, which is an online learning management system where customers, particularly new customers, but in reality any customer, can do self-paced learning and training on the MYOB Advanced key modules. We added to our management structure by appointing Ian as our Service Delivery Manager, and so all of our consulting team report into Ian. And in addition to that, we brought in David Wallace as our Customer Success Manager. So his role is very much entirely customer facing, talking to customers about their growth plans, goals over the next 1, 2, 3 years, and how Momentum can assist in achieving those goals. We continued our focus on the customer experience. So whether that's for new customers implementing the software for the first time, or existing customers perhaps using for many years, and being able to improve your return on investment by utilising aspects of the software that you may not already use. We also really focus on customers for life. So we celebrate customer anniversaries every time they come around. We acquired an office on the north side of Brisbane in a manufacturing hub called Brendale. And our Brisbane team operate out of there when they're not on site visiting you. And we celebrated our, it's actually 15th year in business since I commenced at the company and employed 15 new people. So a very busy last 12 months at Momentum and a lot of growth. Next 12 months, more of the same. We want to keep getting better, improve our implementation process, the upgrade process, working closely with the MYOB team to make sure that major upgrades roll through as smoothly as possible, enabling customers to then utilise the many new features and enhancements that MYOB and Acumatica release, which, at times there are so many, it's hard to keep track of, as well as further enhancing the experience via the add-on or the app marketplace, either for custom applications that Momentum has developed with our tech team or add-ons that are already available through the app marketplace. And generally speaking, continue to get better, so improve our services and support responsiveness to you. So that's a quick update from me. One thing we did want to mention as an example of development of integrations with third-party systems, which is much easier when you have platforms with comprehensive APIs, is Momentum's first connector, which is an Elmo connector. So Elmo being one of, if not the largest HR workforce management solution around Australia, which businesses like to use for recruitment, onboarding, HR. We've now developed a connector with advanced payroll so that an employee hired and onboarded through Elmo would then seamlessly become onboarded in advanced payroll as an employee ready to be paid. And we've also got data flown back to Elmo so that that employee using Elmo and the employee self-service features in Elmo, such as leave requests, can see their up-to-date leave balances, which have come from advanced payroll, have leave requests approved, and also access their payslips. These are some customers who've achieved 5 or 10-year anniversaries with Momentum over the past 12 months. And it's something we're really proud of. It is the length of time that customers stay with us, hopefully partly due to good software and partly due to good service from Momentum. So we thank all of those businesses for their ongoing support. Okay, so that's enough of an introduction from me. Now I'm introducing you to James Wishart, Senior Product Manager at MYOB, and he'll take you through an update from MYOB's perspective. Thanks, James.
Great, thanks, Sal. Hi, everybody. So I'm James, Senior Product Manager for Advanced Business. And look, thanks for having me here today to talk a bit about our spring release and a bit of a product update and where we're heading. I actually joined MYOB about 6 months ago from a company called Technology One, which some of you might have heard of. It's a large ASX listed sort of tier 1, 2 enterprise SaaS solution provider. And I sort of came across MYOB Advanced when I was looking around for other options after spending over 10 years at Tech One, and I was really excited by what I saw in the platform that's available. And people were talking to me about it being sort of the best kept secret that we've got this product, because MYOB traditionally is known for smaller business software. So it's been great to get in here and see some of the software and see what the plans are for the future as well. So today I'm going to go through the advanced business and platform, some of the release highlights, and a bit of the roadmap. And that is the area that I'm more familiar with, the business side. Construction and manufacturing I'll touch on as well. So we've got some release highlights and roadmap for both construction and our manufacturing software, and I'll go through those too. And some of these highlights that we go through today, you'll no doubt see a little bit later when Al takes you for a demo of the new release as well. So if we move on to the advanced business and platform, so the next slide, I think Morgan might be controlling the slides, which is great. So among a host of general improvements and enhancements in the upcoming release, I think there were about 170 or 180 enhancements by count, but some of the main ones, then some of the interesting ones I wanted to call out on screen here. So there's blanket sales orders. So this allows you to have a single standing order for customers where you might need to do multiple deliveries over or distributions over different dates and to multiple locations. It's just made that a lot easier to manage now rather than having to continually raise multiple sales orders. Bank reconciliation, there's some enhancements there around auto matching and being able to match to multiple AP and AR documents. We've also updated the merging of duplicates functionality. So previously you could only merge leads and contacts, but now you can merge business accounts as well. Multi-currency, that's been extended further throughout the system as it continues to progress each release. So that is now part of the CRM system, deferred revenue, fixed assets, projects, and purchase order related forms as well. Then there's a new mobile workspace screen that supports a number of operations and personalizations. And we'll have a look at some of those details shortly. And the last thing I wanted to mention was the e-commerce connectors. So these weren't really part of the release. These came out in August as an add-on, and they're native connectors for BigCommerce and Shopify, sort of out-of-the-box connectors. So for those of you or for customers in perhaps retail or distribution who use Shopify or BigCommerce, these are really sort of sleek connectors that will sync up your data and make it much easier to manage your web store through the enterprise system or through MYOB Advanced. So if we go on to this one, so this is a bit more detail about the blanket sales orders. So basically for, it's a pretty extensive new feature, and it just enables us to easily process custom orders of a number of different items, and we can have an agreement going forward that will distribute those items to customers on a schedule and also to multiple delivery locations. This is something we haven't really been able to do before without manually creating and processing lots of individual orders. And it's going to help by reducing manual processing. It streamlines the orders through the warehouse. It can improve our on-time deliveries, and it can also save on valuable warehouse space because you can align your purchase orders to the delivery schedule as well. So it is a pretty cool new feature that should make things easier for our distribution clients. Next on the list, I think we have bank rec, not always the most exciting part of the system, but there have been some enhancements here. We are now able to auto match or to mass auto match processing of large numbers of transactions, where we previously would often see timeout errors in that situation. You can also auto match multiple bank accounts simultaneously and set up automation schedules for your bank reconciliation. When matching a bank transaction to multiple AP and AR documents, that was an enhancement in the autumn release early this year, but that's been slightly enhanced as well. So you can now include credit memos and debit adjustments into that reconciliation mix at the same time. So that's just making your bank rec process faster, less manual, and more efficient. So let's move on to the next bit, which is the mobile workspace improvements. So the spring release makes the mobile app a more personalized experience for your users through a number of usability improvements and new capabilities. If we go to the next slide to talk about some of the usability enhancements, so it's got a new look and feel. It's a bit more user-friendly. You've got control now, more control around saving, updating, or cancelling changes through the mobile app. There's some improved error reporting as well. And there's also now support for multi-select in form fields, attributes, and user-defined fields. So all this just makes the mobile app experience a little bit more user-friendly. Now, on top of that, on the next slide, we've got some new features in the mobile app. So from this features perspective, there's a number of new capabilities. So this includes easy access to recently opened records. And that's whether they were opened recently in the mobile app itself or whether you were in the browser, the ERP browser. You can have quick access to those recently opened records on the app. Your workspaces can be configured so they're more relevant to a particular user's role. You can take your KPI widgets and add them onto the main menu for quick access. And you can really personalize the app by changing the order of screens and features to suit the way that you want to work or your employees want to work. Favorites as well has been included, so you can navigate to those favorites to save time when working in the app. And you have quick create options, so you can quickly create various operations directly from screens in the workplace. So those are the features that I just wanted to highlight as some of the more interesting things that have come out in the spring release. And I hope some of those will be useful in your day-to-day work. I'm just going to move on to the advanced product roadmap and talk to you a bit about what's coming in the next 6 to 12 months. So there will be more coming as well in the 12-month window particularly. And I just want to point out, obviously, this is a roadmap and roadmaps can and do change. So this should be a pretty good indicator of what is coming out, but as always, it's not really completely set in stone until it's fully delivered. So from a financials perspective, we've got a lot of enhancements coming to the dunning letters or arrears letters. The multi-currency progress extension is being progressed, so we're going to roll that out through contracts and those dunning and arrears, the dunning and arrears process for multi-currency. And the other one is that we're going to have GL transaction approvals, including on the mobile device. So if you do have transactions, GL transactions in your system that require approval, you'll be able to do that straight through the system or straight on the app in the next release or two. Retail commerce, this is really around the BigCommerce and Shopify integration or connectors. So there's a lot of enhancements coming there to help make that sync even better than it is already. And we're also going to have the ability to export sales orders from Advanced back out to your e-commerce sites. That just means that you'll be able to see a complete picture of your e-commerce situation, whether you're looking at it through Advanced or whether you're looking at it through your web store as well. And you'll have that information consistent in both places. Distribution and inventory. There's some predefined dashboards and side panels coming out. Some are released in manufacturing in this release, which we'll talk about in a minute. There's some coming for distribution and inventory as well. There's a new inquiry for inventory turnover, and you're going to have the ability to convert stock to non-stock and vice versa. A couple of small changes, improvements, I guess, in field services. The profit margin is going to be displayed on service orders and appointments just for easy access. And there's going to be a focus on improving the user interface of the mobile app for field services. In CRM, we're enhancing the marketing list and campaigns functionality. You're going to have the ability to change a business account that's already on an opportunity or a sales order. So you won't need to create a new opportunity or sales order if you need to link a different business account. And you're also going to have bidirectional relations tracking. So you can see all the relationships through from the quote, the opportunity, and the sales order from either direction. And lastly, from a technology perspective, a few here that are quite big ones, I guess, that have been around for a while. Single sign-on through Amazon Web Services, that should be imminently being released with any luck. So hopefully that should be out very soon. The ability to have single sign-on to Advanced. AP invoice automation, that has been slightly delayed, but it's very much on our roadmap, and we'll hopefully see that within the next 12 months, the capability for AP invoice automation. And we're also focusing on some mobile app enhancements as usual. So moving on from the roadmap and advanced business, let's go into construction. As I said, we're going to go over these at a bit of a higher level, so we'll just have a single slide for each. So what we've got on this slide is on the left-hand side, we've pretty much got what's come out, the major features that have come out in the spring release, and what's next, and what's our focus, what's next are things that are coming out in the next sort of 6 to 12 months, and then what's our focus is some other things that we're working on as well. So in the spring release, we have the ability to progress bill by quantity. So that's pretty handy for longer term construction projects or heavy and civil engineering. There's new fields available to enable this. And there's also new invoicing and reporting capabilities as well, which just means that you'll be able to bill your customers based on the progression of a project or milestones. Project quotes, these have been simplified, and you can now create multiple or quotes for multiple customers against the same opportunity. There've been some UI design enhancements that's made this all a lot clearer and easier to see all these relationships in a single screen, but now you have the ability to create multiple quotes for multiple customers against the same opportunity. And there's a few other smaller enhancements that came through, some project-specific taxes, enhancements to commitment tracking, and also, as mentioned earlier, the multi-currency rollout now has support in projects. As far as what's next, we have some compliance updates coming out, and this includes the new Queensland Building Trust regulations, which are coming out on the 1st of January, and we suspect will eventually roll out across other parts of Australia as well. Property management, that is functionality designed to support just general commercial and residential property management. This one is looking at more of a 12-month or maybe more time frame. Now that one might be getting slightly pushed back, but that's coming up as well. We're looking at including some industry standard reports that are not currently available in the system natively. And we're looking at retention management because we want to make sure that our construction companies can comply with legislation around retentions without needing to have customizations or workaround. And finally, on the right, we're looking at some other enhancements. So we're looking at project productivity, so being able to track our progress by unit numbers. Mobile app, we want to have submittals and drawing logs through the mobile app. We want to be able to better manage site delays through notice of delay and extension of times. We're putting improvements in for residential builders and a bit of localization, some terminology changes and getting the right weather service coming through the system, and some updates to the cost projection and the WIP reports. So that's construction, and let's move on to manufacturing. So same format as construction. In the spring release on the left, we've had various enhancements come out. So operational control points. These introduce optional functionality that provide companies with a way to designate which production operation must be reported before completing production in the system. So that helps improve production data integrity. Scheduling of queue, finish, and move times enables planning for delays, and that assists in improving production management and planning and delivering accuracy when offering promised dates to customers on the readiness of finished goods. There are, as I mentioned before, there are some out-of-the-box production and engineering dashboards for manufacturing. So these let you set objectives, monitor performance, and you can manage by exception so that you're less reliant on static reporting. So they're designed in a way to help managers make quicker data-driven decisions, and you can get real-time insights into production performance, work queues, and cost variances. You can drill through into the source data, and they're sort of built on a flexible framework that means you can configure them yourself as well. Branch restrictions just means that you've got branch codes added onto all manufacturing records, so you can have user-level security masking based on which branch your users are in. And finally, the MRP, the Materials Requirements Planning Days Supply Order Policy. So this is the ability to consolidate demand quantities, both in the short and longer term, by using a day's supply value. And this results in less orders being raised because you've been consolidating those demand quantities up together. Next on the roadmap, we're looking at automating batch and lot expiry dates at production, helping reduce that manual task and reducing errors there. There are a couple of other MRP improvements. So we had some issues with transfer orders causing planning delays. The way it works in future means that the MRP system considers planned transfer orders in its calculations. So it understands not only the demand quantities, but also the transfer lead time between the warehouses. Time entry on multiple production orders. So the clock entry screen has been redesigned. So now you can clock into multiple production orders at the same time. And it supports the use case where all production orders are clocked in and out simultaneously, as well as staggered start and end times for each production order. Engineering workbench, so a new screen's been introduced, and that supports the ability to edit a multi-level bill of material. So you can drag and drop BOM lines around to resequence them without having to navigate through multiple entry screens. And multiple base currencies, so multiple companies within the same tenant can have different base currencies, and they'll be able to transact with a shared list of stock items and users. Beyond that, we've got a bit of a focus on some of our ISVs, our third-party vendors, to help extend functionality further. So this includes CAD Talk for our engineer to order capability, which will complete an end-to-end workflow to ETO. So CAD Talk will be the middleware architecture, and it will help connect your popular CAD solutions with advanced to sort of encompass that design phase through creation and the ongoing management of the BOM record in advanced. There's a quality management module for manufacturing and also for distribution quality control, and that's going to be launched fairly soon. There's a CPQ tool, so that will take our product configurator sort of to the next level. So with this tool, it's B2C, so consumers can manage online configurations, 3D visualizations, and they can pay via secure payment gateways through that ISV as well. And finally, we're looking at a PLM, a product lifecycle management offering called Arena that will help manage the entire lifecycle of products that our manufacturing customers produce. So that's really it for me today. It's a bit of a whirlwind overview of what's been done and what's on the roadmap. I do have to drop off this meeting fairly shortly, but if you have any questions, please perhaps put them through into the chat. And if they're not answered as part of the session today, then Momentum can send them on to me and I'll get back to you. Apart from that, thanks very much for your time. I hope there was some interesting bits of product that's come out and some things on the roadmap that piqued your interest. And I'll pass you back to Al.
Thanks very much, James. Yeah, very comprehensive update on the key things happening in the spring release, as well as a bit of a look forward into the roadmap that you might not have seen before. So yeah, as James mentioned, about 170, 180 enhancements into the spring release, which is a hell of a lot of development going on. And we're particularly excited also about a few of those ISV relationships, particularly the quality application, which will be embedded within Advanced, so it will look and feel like part of the ERP, even though it's developed by a third party. So I guess it highlights some of the capability of Advanced to allow third parties to effectively write applications within it.
Yeah, I was actually introduced to that. I was invited to that demo and I thought it was someone from, because I'm fairly new still, I guess, I thought it was someone from MYOB showing us some development they'd done until halfway through the demo when I realized it, because it looked just like Advanced. It just plugged straight in.
Correct. Inherits all the visual properties, audit trail, security, approval workflows in the application. See a question there on the CPQ. We can respond to that, I think, for you, James. I think it's probably available in the next quarter or so.
I'll see if I can chase that up for you. I don't have that answer myself, but I'll see if I can get that now.
No problem. And also, I'll be touching on a couple of advanced payroll improvements that are coming up in the near future as well, which sit slightly outside the spring release, but actually happening concurrently. So thanks, James. Next slide. Thanks, Morgan. So next we have Ian. Ian Dunn is our service delivery manager. All of our consulting team report into Ian since he started with us a few months ago. So I'll hand over to you, Ian, to take everybody through a bit about yourself and also how we're going about things at Momentum.
Thanks, Al. Afternoon, everyone. Good to virtually meet you and speak to you all. So yes, service delivery. New role for Momentum. As Al did mention, 4 months in the role so far. Busy start to that 4 months. Prior to that, I think all roads led to Al. So I can appreciate how busy he was. But I think since I've come on board, he's sort of gone down the road of the Benjamin Button process now and getting younger by the day. So one of my initial discoveries is not technical, it was cultural that I discovered when I came on board with Momentum, and it's just a fantastic culture inside the building. And that's a real credit to Al and Deanne, and there's just great teamwork, a really diverse set of people and cultures. There's good flexibility, and I know the team really enjoys that and values it. So we've got a very good caliber of consultant inside the building because of that. So my background, who am I? So I've only gone back 18 years. So I didn't want to go back any further because back to the days of 3.1 installs with 18 floppy disks would probably scare people and give you a bit of a PTSD buzz. So I worked for Toshiba Print Division for 16 years, created a professional services team for AP and AR software installations using OTR software a long time ago to scrape data off hard copy documents and push it through to ERP and financial systems using the print devices as scanners as on-ramps. Eventually, because of the decline of print, I was asked to start up an IT business inside the Toshiba, which we did in 2014, and it went very well. In 2010, it went very well until the print revenue and volume dropped off. Because especially with COVID, no one went to the office, no one pressed the green button. So the print division decided to outsource my successful IT business. And that was my last project for Toshiba, was outsourcing it. And then I moved on to a smaller IT business there to help them transition their business model. So I guess experience over the years, a sustained period instead of a long time, building and developing and managing technical teams, both IT, software, and development. So a decent period of time managing technical teams. So the service delivery model, I've embraced a pretty basic, and it's developed these days, service delivery model after all the years managing these teams. So engage, communicate, respond, and deliver. Easy words to say, but I think engagement's super important, especially for momentum. And I think it starts for new customers initially when the technical team first engages with you guys to get to know your businesses and understand what sort of processes you have that we can push into a functional MYOB system. So kickoff, extremely important to understand the stakeholders in your business and the key users. Scoping, again, super important to understand the details of your business and apply that knowledge to a really functional MYOB system. All that being done, I think it leads to successful implementations and an easier change management process for you guys. And then, of course, a better transition into support for that system once it's delivered. That's communication. Look, it's the key. I think it's key for all of us on this call. That in any business, that communication to the customers is just so important. It would seem it's the easiest thing to improve, and it can be. It's certainly one of the low-hanging fruits that you can get some good responses and some good traction on. So it's very crucial for complex implementations of software systems, critical for support. Everyone knows if something's going wrong, we need to address it and communicate with you guys about it. And also for longer term, it's important for business improvement and engagement for us to keep in contact and make sure that your systems are up to date and working as you want them and delivering it across all your business. Respond, I should say, ties in with communication, but it's a bit different. It's from my perspective, it's us responding directly to one of your communications for advice, support, help, or an update, anything like that. If our responsiveness is not there, then it's a very poor reflection on us. So we're working very hard to make sure that our responsiveness is up to scratch. Something that I'm working on with the team, and also responsiveness makes a very big difference to most service delivery outcomes, whether it's implementation, support, or general business requests. And deliver, the simplest one of all, really, but it's the one that's hardest to achieve, and that's deliver on our commitments and ultimately your expectations. So my strategy is, and I hope if we can engage with you and communicate clearly and regularly and respond when we're called upon, and then deliver on your expectations, I think we'll have a long-term partnership with you guys. And that's my service delivery model and my goal. So what's my roles and responsibilities? That's a high-level look at it, I guess. So as in a nutshell, I'm responsible for the entire technical team, and that team does all the implementations, all the small projects, and delivers support as well for all your systems. At a bit of a deeper level, I'm stepping in as a project sponsor for implementations. Like, I'll be across the high level progress of these implementations, and I'll be in all the kickoff meetings. And really there is a bit of a circuit breaker, because I guess, let's be honest, delivering complex software, it's a bit of a journey, and they're all a little bit different. So it's pretty crucial at times that there'll be frustrations and there's someone to talk to and that's outside the delivery team that you can talk to and make sure that we're heading in the right direction, because it will happen on complex implementations. So always feel free to engage with me directly. No problem with that at all. Post implementations is also something I do. So 360-degree feedback for momentum from you guys once you've gone live. Very important, and we're doing those on a regular basis for every time one of our systems go live. So it's extremely important and something that I'm happy to get engaged in. And even if your system's been around for a while and you want a health check, that's certainly something we're happy to do as well. So please get in contact if you want us to have a look over it, make some recommendations, or include some other parts of your business. So happy to do that. And I'm also responsible for product escalations. So what that means, I'm directly responsible for liaising with MYOB themselves for product or licensing issues that the consultants don't have the power to control. So if anything goes to MYOB to be actioned on a platform level, that's something that I work with them. And I'm working directly with their support management team at the moment to improve their support to us so we can help you faster. So having spoken about the team improvements, what I've identified initially after being here a few months is obviously develop, build, grow and improve is what I've grouped the improvements into. So develop processes that maximises the strengths of our consulting team. We've got some extremely experienced and intelligent people in the consulting team. So to develop their mentoring and the processes they can help us with to deliver a better outcome for essentially you guys. Develop a structure within the teams that we can sustain the growth that ours has been very successful in creating. Build. So we want to build out the consulting team and their structures, and also build leadership into that group as well. Grow. We want to grow the support team. It's crucial support as the new customers come on board, and also the customers that change across to Momentum for support after their implementations have been done. We really need to grow the support team and specialise in it. So we've had a new person start this month specifically for support, and we'll still be growing that part of the business as we move forward. And improve. That's the key to this, is improve. So customer satisfaction is a key area I'm targeting. I think it'll come with successfully delivering the develop, build and grow part of this slide. It all ties in under communication as well. So improvements in communication is something that I'm really targeting as well to improve our overall customer satisfaction experience. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I'm reviewing all the technical structures and processes. So all the entire technical operations as we move forward. But it's all work in progress and more to come. So hopefully this gives me a bit of an insight into the work we're doing behind the scenes at Momentum to improve the customer experience. The addition of my role's one. David's the same with customer success. It's all a work in progress, but we're doing it as quickly as possible. So I'm happy to engage with you guys one-on-one. Please don't hesitate to contact me. Happy to organise health checks or anything that you need. And also, if you've got any outstanding issues, requests, or anything that you think I could help you with, please feel free to contact me. Thanks, Al. That's over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ian. Great overview of what's happening from a service delivery perspective, and it's certainly my observation already is making a big difference to our consistency of delivery. Next slide, please, Morgan. So I've got 20 minutes now to take you through more detail of the next major upgrade, and particularly a few highlights of that. So James has done it in PowerPoint. I'm going to do some live demos and a little bit of PowerPoint, but mostly live demos. So if you could just take me to the next slide. Thanks, Morgan, and then I'll share my screen in a moment. So I'm going to spend a bit of time on the mobile app because historically the mobile app is not heavily used by customers. And I think MYOB looked into that, and some of the reasons why is it's not easy enough to use. And it's not easy enough to personalize for individual users. So I'm going to spend a bit of time on how you actually do that. Then we're going to look at blanket sales orders, the bank rec improvements briefly. So trying to touch on a few things that would be of interest to everybody, as well as a few things that are industry specific. So construction, project quoting and milestone billing by quantity, and manufacturing, some manufacturing dashboards and control point operations. All right, so I'll just share my screen and then we're going to look at the MYOB Advanced mobile app. So what I've got here is on the right-hand side of the screen, I'm sharing my MYOB Advanced mobile app, which is running on my iPhone, runs on Android as well. And on the left-hand side is the mobile workspace, which is a new screen introduced into the spring release. And the mobile workspace allows you to manage how things are presented to the end user. And the whole look and feel of the mobile app has changed. So if I log on to our live site, which has not yet been upgraded to the new version, the mobile app looks like this. It's not bad. All of the different modules are represented by buttons, but I can't really customize which buttons are there or not and what order they're in, either as a user or even as an administrator. So If I now log on to the upgraded demo site, so without upgrading my mobile app, let's try that again. The app responds immediately differently and presents differently to the user once your ERP has been upgraded. So right away, you can see a few key differences. So there's a KPI tile right at the top, and you can choose what that KPI tile might be for yourself. Then in the middle, I've got recently accessed things. So it enables me to much more quickly go back to something I might have been accessing recently on my mobile app. And it, in fact, is the same list of recently accessed items as what you would see in the browser. And then you can see the list of functions that I might access below there. So that's where things start to improve for the user, because I've now got a little radio button on the right-hand side. And if I click on that, I can go edit list. And let's say I'm a person in the warehouse who's using the scanning feature on the mobile app. So I want that to appear first in my list. So I can simply drag that to the top and save. And you'll see just by refreshing the app, that's now at the top of my list, just for me as the logged in user. So not something that you could easily do before. If I go into those items, those are the same buttons. Now, if we look at that same screen in the mobile workspace, an administrator can choose the sort order of these functions as well. So you can see that each one of these can be ticked as visible or invisible and moved up or down. So let's say I don't need storage lookup at all. So if I save that, yeah, that is immediately removed from my menu just by refreshing. Put it back on. Comes straight back on. Now, at the top there is my little KPI tile. And so this is showing me my shipments to pick and pack. And that's something that I can also maintain from the mobile workspace screen. So the mobile workspace screen allows you to add widgets. So a widget is an item that would appear within a dashboard. So one dashboard might contain 4 widgets or 10 widgets, depends on how they're designed. So to give you an example, each one of these things is a widget. So I've said, what dashboard do I want to pick the widget from? And then what widget on that dashboard do I want to show? And that's what is now showing in the mobile app for that feature. So I think you'd agree that that's a considerable improvement to how it was, in that the ease of use is considerably improved because I can customize it myself as a mobile user by choosing the order of things that appear, but I can also more globally update it using the mobile workspace. And if in doing that, I've caused a problem, there's an easy reset to default mobile workspace option. So as soon as your Advanced is upgraded to the spring release, the mobile app will immediately inherit those properties, as I showed you when I logged onto the app. I haven't had to upgrade my mobile app. It just presents differently depending on the version. Okay. So I'm going to move on to bank rec improvements. And this part, I'm just going to show by way of a video because it requires a live bank feed to show. So the important things that become available in processing of bank transactions. So this is a screen that your people will access, particularly if you are using bank feeds, and you can use the same process to import bank transactions from a CSV file, but bank feeds is considerably better. And under the current version, you would need to process each bank account one at a time, and it will basically show you what it's brought through from that bank feed, how many receipts, how many disbursements, what has been matched or not matched, and then you can go into the next step of processing bank transactions. With the new version, you can do all bank accounts at the same time, and you can also choose to auto match everything that the processing bank transaction screen is capable of doing. So one thing that process bank transactions does, for example, that people may not be aware of, is if in your bank feed, which basically means a transaction on your bank statement, there is a payment from one of your customers, then without doing anything, by running the process bank transactions, then it will create the payment against that customer account and also match it to any invoice or invoices that that customer owes you based on amount and date. Then the additional enhancement that's been done is to the ability to further match through the bank processing transaction screen multiple transactions or multiple documents in the process bank transaction. So the enhancement that was done in the last major release was if I had a receipt from a customer, for example, or I'm matching to a payment that I've issued to a supplier, then I can match that against multiple transactions, but they all needed to be invoices, either accounts payable invoices or accounts receivable invoices. In practicality, that's not always the case because there could be a credit, which in MYOB Advanced speak on the accounts payable side is a debit adjustment. So previous version, you needed to match the debit adjustment to an invoice or partly to an invoice outside of the screen in order to use this feature. The feature now supports matching of multiple document types and multiple documents to a single transaction in the process bank transactions screen. There's also enhancements around similar functionality related to prepayments, so prepayments being deposits. So bank rec, not very exciting and not a huge value add, but it can be very time consuming. So the more efficiently it's done, the better off your people are going to be and the better off your business is going to be. And using the additional feature to create rules means that common, what you would call spend money or pay cash book type transactions can be automated using rules. Okay, so now we're going to look at a blanket sales order, and you can see I'm multitasking here. One of the nice features of Advanced is to be able to have as many tabs and screens open as you like. So I'm in my demo system, have my CFO dashboard, and a blanket sales order, as James described, is a completely new feature. So it introduces a new order type called a BL, which stands for blanket, obviously. And the concept being it enables you to manage, for example, a contract for 6 months supply of certain items to that customer. And this sales order, being a BL, will not produce any transactions or invoices. It is effectively a placeholder for the overall contract and will produce child orders, which you then supply based on the pre-agreed delivery schedule. So the items that change is we have most of the order screen looks exactly the same. Who's my customer? Who's the contact? Date? They might have an order number, could be a contract number, and then I've got products and quantities and prices in the blanket sales order. What you'll also see is a field called the blanket open quantity. So we've got the total quantity, quantity on orders, the blanket open quantity, and the unshipped quantity. If I scroll a bit further along, I've got a couple of additional fields that I can maintain. So one is the scheduled order date. And the second one is the ship to location. So one thing about a blanket sales order is if my customer has multiple delivery addresses, or what we call locations, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, then I can capture all of those in a single blanket order. So I've got some lines on here to their main location, and I've got a line here to their Brisbane location. Now, if you then want to actually set up your delivery schedule, there's a couple of ways of doing that. So you could duplicate the item and have it on multiple lines in the same order. That's one way of doing it. If I highlight that item and click on line details, you can see what I've been able to do is just simply enter quantities and dates. And what Advanced does, if I've started with a quantity of 400, which was my original ordered quantity, and I've just added a line in here for 200, it automatically then will add, keep adding lines until I've used up the total quantity. So each one of those can have a scheduled order date and a scheduled shipment date. It can also have its own customer order number. Then the other thing you can look at, and you could handle this a couple of different ways. So if you're running replenishment, then you can just simply run replenishment at your normal frequency and pick up the demand, which incorporates any blanket sales order. Or you can use the mark for purchase order feature, and you can then pre-schedule when that purchase order is going to be created. If you print it, and again, the form is quite easy to be customized, but by default, it will split the order by your customer ship to location. So in this case, I've got the Brendale or the Brisbane location for the customer with this item at that quantity. And then I've got their Perth location with 3 other items at different quantities. So once you have entered all the items and configured your locations and or scheduled deliveries, then you basically click the Create Child Orders button, and that will split the items and the locations and the delivery dates into individual sales orders. So those sales orders are a normal sales order of type SO. And an SO can be supplied in the normal way. But whatever is done on that sales order will roll up to the blanket order so that you'll always be able to see quantity on order, unshipped quantity, etc. Just conscious of time, so I'm going to move on to a couple of construction-specific improvements. So the first one is managing project quotes and being able to quote the same project to multiple customers or prospects from the one opportunity, which in the construction edition you could do, but the workflow was pretty clunky, I would have to say. So in this case, I have an opportunity. The business account could be whomever it needs to be. And in this case, I've got 2 project quotes. So I started with project quote 29, and I've issued that to this customer. And then to issue a second quote, it's as simple as copying that quote, changing the business account and contact person for the second builder or company I'm going to issue this project quote for. It already inherits the project tasks or work breakdown structure from the project that I'm proposing to do, and I've got a very simple single line quote. That can then be printed, emailed directly to the customer or prospect, and then whichever of those builders wins the contract is the quote that you would convert to your project. So also seeing in the same screen the quote value, who the customer is, the contact person, and the cost, margin dollars, and margin percent for that quote. So nice improvement there. I'll move on to project billing by quantity. So again, an enhancement to the construction edition. And this allows us to have a project with our tasks in a work breakdown structure. And a new field is then available where I can set my progress billing base or method, if you like. So it can be quantity or amount. And so what that does is enable us to update a pending invoice quantity. So in this case, I've already invoiced 100. My revenue budget was for 200. And because I've previously invoiced, my actual quantity is 150 and 50. So if I add another 50, 25, 25, 10, you can see it's calculating the pending invoice amount there. Run project billing. And when my pro forma is created, you can now see budgeted quantity and dollars, actual quantity, previously invoiced quantity, quantity on this invoice, and then issue that. So more commonly used in civil, it can be things like landscaping, all kinds of industries. So it enables that the invoicing to be done not just on percent complete, but on quantity complete. If I remove hold and invoice it, then you would see the invoice has exactly the same information. So some manufacturing enhancements. The spring release introduces some more standard manufacturing dashboards. So there's the introduction of a production manager dashboard, and you can see on that dashboard a lot of information that a production manager would typically want to see. So what orders need to be released today, what orders need to be released this week. Every one of those widgets is drillable. So what's the work center capacity looking like? And of course, being a dashboard, able to be customized or modified by yourselves or by us for you. Next slide, Morgan. There's also a production meeting dashboard. So that's like your daily pre-start meeting. What orders do we need to release today? What orders are we releasing this week? What's our work center planned utilization? And again, all drillable and able to be accessed by the production people. There's an additional dashboard, which is an engineering control dashboard, and it's for managing engineering change orders, where there is a bill of material design change as well. Next slide, Morgan. So a couple of additional things. So planning delay times into the production schedule. So the last major upgrade introduced a Gantt style production calendar board. Really nice enhancement to the manufacturing module. What it didn't initially consider was delay time or move time in the Gantt chart. So this is a little hard to read, but it now does. So when you're setting up your bill of material, then that bill of material, if it includes queue time and move time, will affect the schedule, which is very important in terms of being able to understand your ability and time frame to produce. Next slide, Norm. And the next one is operation control point. So that's a method by which you can configure advanced to force a control point at a certain point in time in your production process. So I'll very quickly share my screen and show where that can apply. So you can set up any work center. So this is the work center maintenance screen. Any work center could be a control point in and of itself. So in this case, the inspection work center is a control point. But equally, any operation in a bill of material could also be a control point. And the outcome of that is when you are completing an action on a production order, which is usually done by a move, then it will force the quantity that's being produced at that operation to be equal to what was planned. Previously, with a move, it was actually possible to enter in almost any quantity, which could then cause you problems with your raw material on hand and various other things. So it introduces very much a control step to say, well, you can't enter 10 because this production order was only scheduled to produce 8, for example. You could just reshare, Morgan. So this screenshot is an example where a move transaction, which is often what basically is the process by which a production order moves from one operation to the next and includes completing the production order. So Advance will return an error if the control point rule is breached. Thanks, Morgan. And then finally, I do want to touch on some enhancements to advanced payroll, because I know we've got a number of customers on the session who are using payroll. So in the current quarter, so this side of Christmas, in fact, it's already available, there are a new pay processing option to decouple the production of the payslip from the pay processing screen, which makes the pay processing screen considerably faster, by minutes in some cases. And then the payslip can then still be sent as a logical next step. Shortly after that, there will be improvements to the importing of timesheets. So that's where you may be importing timesheets from a third-party time capture application. And for very large payrolls, that process can take a little too long, to be honest. So there are major improvements happening to that. And then the third enhancement that I would highlight, and this is due probably in the first quarter of next year, is to have employee onboarding. So technically it's part of the workforce management module, but the intention from MYOB is to make just that part available without subscribing to the workforce management module and paying that fee, that you would be able to, employees would be able to onboard themselves using the workforce management functionality. They can do it, the whole thing, on their mobile app or on a browser. And by completing that step, they will be onboarded as a new employee in your advanced payroll. So some pretty considerable improvements happening there. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for staying with us. Hopefully you had a quick break, and we've got a lot of excellent content to go through for the next hour. So I did want to introduce our team. Most of them are working, so most of them are not on this call. But as you can see, we've got a sizable team of qualified MYOB advanced consultants. All of our team go through training that MYOB insist on to be accredited in all the different modules. It's a very thorough accreditation process, plus our own internal training and knowledge sharing. So you can see all of our consulting team there, which includes our tech team of developers, all reporting into Ian, and our support team as well. And we have subject matter experts interspersed in the team, particularly in areas like payroll and workforce management, manufacturing, and construction. So yes, a growing team with a lot of experience already, and we're continuing to add to that. So now I'm going to introduce you to David Wallace. David is our Customer Success Manager at Momentum, and he's going to talk to you about best practice CRM processes. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Al. Good afternoon, everyone. Whether you're a current CRM implementer, user, or thinking of CRM, or just want to know more, I hope to be able to present this afternoon just some of the basics, some of the foundations of CRM, rather than go into the technical side of the software, just more of principles to consider. Let's get cracking there, Morgan. So this is where I get to show my age. I've been dealing in CRM for over 25 years now. So for those of you who've been around as long as I have, you'll remember the old cards and things like that. We had very unsecure records. We had high potential of loss of data. Generally, if we lost a staff member, we lost our data as well. We had no collaboration or connectivity with each other. We had to phone in our orders. It was a very physical way of managing customers. There was little or no analysis available to the people that were running CRM processes or for customer-facing team members. Zero tracking of opportunities, zero tracking of objectives, particularly in real time, and very little, if not zero, automation. Morgan? We very much had in the beginning, a sales rep only process, whether it be a specific rep or the general manager or the manager who used to go out and visit customers. If they did use sort of some CRM system, it was really just geared for them. It was just keeping a record of what we discussed, no real to-do list management, no action items, unless you were very efficient with your paper diaries. And the info was only accessible by people who had access to the cards or to those PDAs or other manual records. In the late 90s into the 2000s, CRM systems evolved a little, but companies generally adopted them more of a big stick approach. It became more of a timesheet system. It was centered around more the statistic of how many sales calls did a sales rep do per day, based and compared to a requirement of 6 or 8 sales calls a day, a little bit of admin time, etc., etc. There was a fair bit of burden on that team member to complete their activities in the system, to keep the boss happy. But at the end of the day, there was no real benefit to that end user. Sales focus was not a priority of the system. The sales call was the priority of the system. And it was really just a quantitative measure rather than a qualitative measure. And the next one, please, Morgan. Final one, I think. We were focused on the account rather than the contacts. In those days, we didn't really personally contact that contact who made the decisions for us. It was more about visiting the business. There was no connection to marketing activities. Marketing sometimes was very separate to the sales plans and sales outcomes. There was little collaboration across individual members of a sales force. There were very much siloed territories in those days. No access to electronic documents, published documents, standard documents, marketing documents. No matter what, it was generally a brochure that was mailed out or something like that, and no real means of handling customer inquiries and seeing that they were followed through. The reason I mention all of this in the beginning is because it was more highlighting what was missing. And everything I just mentioned there that I highlighted as a deficiency in those times has now been resolved and is available in modern CRM systems, including advanced CRM module. So it's closed that loop. It's closed all of those, or eliminated all of those restraints that we had in the old days. And if implemented properly, not only can you overcome those restraints or limitations, you can progress much further and much quicker, and CRM becomes a greater benefit. Morgan? The other thing that happened between then and now is we've gone from a very primitive marketing type of methodology, or was actually advanced for us in those days, but we've obviously evolved to very much a digital world with the invention of search engines and social media. So those will remember the two volumes of Yellow Pages that were sitting on the kitchen bench. It's a vastly different world now. Morgan? There are 3 main pillars to a good CRM model. One is operational, one is analytical, and the third is collaborative. And all 3 relate to overcoming those constraints and restrictions we had going back 20 years ago. Operational CRM is focused on streamlining business processes, joining the sales automation, marketing automation, and service automation, pretty self-explanatory, but basically automating sales is about setting the standard to acquire new customers and managing existing customers. There are certain modules within a CRM system that are specifically for sales automation. Marketing automation optimizes the way we announce our products, offer our products to the world at large, our markets at large, and how we acquire customers to come and purchase those products. There's a lot to do in relation to automating campaigns, tying those campaigns to opportunities, and then being able to analyze those campaigns down the track as to their success or not so much success. And then there's service automation. So most business will have, whether it's a team or at least a function where you respond to customer inquiries, support tickets, technical support, requests for information, where is my order, all those sorts of things. That is service automation. Analytical CRM, especially relating back to the old days, there was very little analytical CRM. These days, it's pretty much mandatory that you must build in your dashboards, your scorecards, you're analyzing sales by products, by customers, customer ordering patterns, what margins are you achieving, what trade spends and discounts are you giving away in order to achieve those gross sales, analyzing your activities, and that's not just sales calls, that's activities, whether they be by email, whether they be by phone calls, internal sales departments, those sorts of things, if you have them, analysing campaigns, analysing the opportunities and pipelines, obviously being able to forecast sales from that analysis, and then analysing the quality of our responses to customer inquiries or customer complaints, otherwise known as cases. And once you've got all that in front of you, obviously you can then you can make decisions about improving not only your business, but improving the way you use CRM and leveraging more of its power as you get better at knowing how it can help your business. Thanks, Morgan. And then the final pillar that I mentioned was collaborative CRM. So instead of the Kalamazoo card sitting in the back of the sales rep's seat of his or her car, or the boot of the car, all of that information now is real time. It's shareable. 99% of all offerings now are in the cloud, and if they're not, everyone's sort of migrating to the cloud quite quickly. It allows better collaboration, obviously for other systems as well, but also specifically for CRM. Yeah, I won't go into the examples, guys. This slide deck takes a little bit more than the time we have, but moving on quickly. So they're the three pillars of CRM. The 5 main benefits that you'd like to achieve from CRM within your organization, which I mentioned in the previous slide, is de-siloing customer teams, making sure that not only your sales force, your marketing department, your product development, your technical department, all customer-facing departments or employees or teams can see what each other is doing. I gave a specific example in this morning's presentation around a sales rep walking into a customer in Perth who 10 minutes before that sales rep walking into that customer had logged a technical request. That sales rep knew of that technical request, and the customer was extremely impressed that that sales rep was across that question and the answers that he or she had received, and was able to ask, were they satisfied, etc. So it was a very, very delightful experience for that customer, and empowered the use of CRM. And that's just one of millions of examples of how de-siloing and collaboration can occur. Thanks, Morgan. Improving communications, and that's not just by telephony. It's all sorts of communications, as you know, exist these days. So it's about being in the know, about having customers not only knowing what's going on, but your own team members knowing what's going on, the success of campaigns. And then with that information, you can trigger workflows. You can spawn additional activity, additional improvements to marketing campaigns, etc., by being fully in touch with all parts of your customer relationship management. Morgan. And that was a good segue into the automation side of CRM. Thousands and thousands of workflows have been created. For example, a sales rep may visit a customer. The customer may show interest in a specific product line or a specific campaign simply by the tick of a yes/no box or a radio button on a sales activity card, for that call was. That could spawn thousands of hundreds of different responses. Someone might be able to send some free product. Someone might be able to send some brochures. Someone might invite them to a seminar, whatever the case may be. It can just trigger all sorts of stuff to grow that customer. And that can all be very automated and obviously reduce a lot of hands in managing that activity for that customer. The fourth is one of the most critical ones of modern day CRM, and that's being able to build in your dashboards and your scorecards. I will talk about user adoption later in my presentation, but user adoption certainly is driven by the fact that people are hungry for information, and to bring them into CRM, to see that information, to understand how their achievements are going versus their objectives, and then being able to drill into the detail where possible, I feel is critical to any CRM project or implementation. The dashboard you see there on the left is an existing dashboard that we've developed for one of our clients. It's actually a Power BI dashboard that's been built into CRM and other areas of the business, but it's their daily sales report. It is a high-level landing page, but you can drill down into channels, territories, regions, filter by month, filter by invoices, filter by products, etc., etc. This is just the landing page, and it just keeps track of how sales are going throughout the course of obviously the current month, but you can choose previous month, and you can obviously choose year to date as well. Just a fundamental dashboard just to get the imagination juices flowing, guys, about some of the things that we are building into CRM in our current world. Number 5. At the end of the day, we want to grow sales and we want to meet our sales objectives. But strategically, how we do that is fundamentally a company would, or a business would, have a strategic plan at the starting point. It would have marketing plans, business plans, product plans as all part of that overall strategic plan. CRM is then used as a tactical tool to deliver on those plans and to identify any deviation or improvements or levers that you may wish to pull within the business to stay on track with those strategies and those objectives, and or alert you to the fact that you may want to re-steer that ship a little bit and go back and revisit your strategies. So they're the 5 benefits that you should achieve from a CRM system. I'm not talking about how you use cases specifically or how you use opportunities specifically. It's a higher level picture of the outcomes from a well implemented CRM system. Moving on. In my experience, these are some of the keys to successful CRM systems, and it's not about, once again, how you design cases, etc. It's about how you adopt and employ CRM within your businesses. The number one that I come across is that a lot of people have, a lot of customers have migrated their account data from their ERP system into CRM. CRM is more about managing contacts, the contacts at those customers. I'm quite sure that a lot of you would have contacts under your customer accounts. 9 times out of 10, when I see people have migrated the accounts from ERP to CRM, yep, the contacts have come across. It's probably the accounts payable person, it's probably the accounts email address and the head office phone number. It's not necessarily the person that works at that warehouse or at that particular distribution center or that or the other areas of business that might be influenced by your marketing, and they may potentially be the decision maker, and also obviously be primary focus on meeting your sales objectives. Obviously, you engage with the personal side of that business. You engage with the person, the contact, for your sales calls, your emails, those people lodge inquiries, they're expecting a response to them personally. And you want to track, I highly encourage that you track that activity, not only against the account, but the contact of that account, that person that that spawned that request, seeking the response to your questions. It's highly valuable that you record that. Next one, please, Morgan. The second component is being able to manage the customer evolution process. In simple terms, it's taking thousands of leads to hundreds of prospects to dozens of customers, and hopefully better statistics than that. Some of the smaller businesses, the smaller clients, may forget about managing leads and suspects, or have that as an external process, or just bring them into the system and market to them collaboratively. But you may want to work more specifically on converting prospects to customers. You would have different processes designed around converting a prospect to a customer, and they're not. The processes aren't necessarily around those phases, but you may want to consider, more importantly, what is the opportunity that individual leads, prospects, and customers, what do they represent? We may have a prospect that may represent $100 worth of sales a month, and obviously there's an expense or there's a cost to convert that prospect to a customer. But there may be a prospect that could be $100,000, $200,000 a year customer. Obviously, you want to engage your processes around those bigger opportunities, the lower hanging fruit, so to speak, and you want to automate those processes as much as possible. The next one is, once you've got that customer, CRM should focus on making that customer a promoter. Promoter is a relatively new term, but I like to say you're transitioning your D customers, that $100 a month customer, and you're transitioning to become, an A customer, to be that $150,000 a year customer, and then becoming a promoter of your business. Those people are a lot easier to retain than they are to acquire. But once you've got them, you want to evolve them as well and come on board. I mentioned this earlier. The biggest driver, or the biggest shortfall of CRM systems in the past, was having users adopting the system, and then information wasn't accurate and it really wasn't useful. The users of CRM should be the beneficiaries of the system. Yes, it's about managing relationships with customers, but those relationships on our business side is us, and we want to see the benefits of being able to manage those outcomes with our customers. So it creates an outcomes-based measuring model, not an inputs-based measuring model. We need to provide our users with access to useful and timely data. We don't want our users to have to read thousands and thousands of different things, or hundreds of different things, to find the thing that they're actually looking for. We need to design the system so that they come into the system and things are highlighted to them. And then if they want to inquire deeper, they have the ability to do so. We want to make their day smarter. We want to share the successes across the system. Standardizing this system, I found in the past, has been very important, particularly as people share information, same terminology, same jargon, those sorts of things, the same jargon around objectives, projects, campaigns. It's all very consistent and very useful to be consistent. And then those users, if they're adopting it, they can also contribute to suggestions on how we can continuously improve the system. And then look, it's a CRM's a huge system. It can be sometimes bigger than ERP when you involve all the marketing, all the opportunities, and all the campaigns. But it doesn't need to be that wide wave of events. You can start in smaller chunks. You could start by simply getting your data together, getting your accounts, your business accounts, and your contact data, getting it as full as possible. Maybe then we'll move into designing cases, managing inquiries from, internal inquiries coming in via the phone, coming in via email. Next step, inquiries coming in from the web, diverting those inquiries, whether they come from the web, to the appropriate person with automation, with workflow, routing them to the right people, and then having them responding properly. and then move on to activity tracking, move on to housing your documents in CRM, your marketing, your publications, things like this presentation that we're doing here today will be available for you guys to share in later on, and that will become a source of our documents, or one of our documents. And then moving on to managing your sales pipeline, managing opportunities, doing sales forecasts from those opportunities, and how the campaigns will evolve into those opportunities, and how your marketing activity will drive sales and into those customer related opportunities. I think that's all I've got from a fundamentals point of view. If anyone's got any questions, throw them at me now. Nope. Answered everyone's questions. That's good news.
Thanks, David. Much appreciated. Very comprehensive presentation on CRM. So next slide. Thanks, Morgan. So we have Nicola Butler now. Nicola is one of our senior MYOB advanced consultants, and she's running a 20-minute training session on a few things. So Nicola, I'll throw to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Al. Hello, everybody. It's nice to see some familiar names on the list. Just would like to go through some of the roles and securities and users. It's a huge area, so we're not going to touch everything. There's lots of ways that you can make your system safe. There's a couple of things that have come on board in the updates that we've had, and one in particular I really like that I'd like to share with you, so that hopefully it saves you a couple of minutes. Also, just learning how to actually turn on that audit trail. So if you're not having issues and you want to just make sure, keep an eye on things, just a quick way to make sure that you are able to turn on your audit trail and actually read your audit trail and find out the information that you want. And then lastly, we're just going to do how to enter and approve an expense claim, and just see how easy it is to actually apply another security layer of putting in approval maps. So I'll head off, and I'm just going to share my screen. I didn't do a PowerPoint today. Okay, so I'm in our demo environment at the moment, and basically we've got the various areas within the system. So the first sort of layer of security that we've got is obviously in configuration, where you set up your companies, your branches, your company tree, any assignment and approval maps. And then we have your user security. So your user security is where you've got users' profiles in which you attach licenses and roles to, and that gives you the availability to restrict the site access to certain parts of the software for users. And then you've got your role level security. So your role level security is about using what we've made in your configuration, whether you've got warehouses, branches, different companies, sub-accounts. This is where you can access your users to various parts of the data. What we're actually going to look at is, I'm going to go back to the user setup and user security. First of all, if ever you're doing this, we do it in the test environment. Please don't try to do any of these changes in your live environment, because you'll suddenly find out people can't do their work, and then you'll be in a panic trying to get it back again. So within the users, if I go click on a users, and I've shown my age now, because I'm going to say, here's one I made earlier. I've made a test user. So obviously a really imaginative login name, test user, and I've assigned that test user to an employee. So the employee has been set up, and I've just borrowed one for this exercise. And within that, you've got the roles, you've got licenses and statistics, IP filters, etc. You can read all of those. So what I would be doing when I set up a user is I would be applying a role and also the license types that we had. And with that, as it used to be, that would give access to the user to do various roles within whatever you decide to do. So this is an AP clerk. I've ticked AP clerk, so she's got access to AP functions. I've also given them an employee because they're an employee, and I've given them access to internal employees and internal users. So what happens is, if you come into this account and you want to see where they've actually got, what access they've got to the system, is I would click on access rights by role. So this you can find in your user security under here, under access rights. So you've got the access by the roles, which is what we're going to look at. You've also got access rights by the user. So this means when you set up a user and you want to be able to go see what screens they've got access to, you can go in. I will be going in there later and having a look. And then you've got access rights by screen. So if you've got a screen that you don't want to be able to see where people are, or so we want to be able to see who can see what in a certain screen, you can go to that screen and have a look and be able to find out who has access to those screens. So I'm going to go into the access rights by role for the AP clerk. So this is a standard preset set of access roles, accesses that are pre-configured by MYOB. So when you go in, you have this tree here, which is a system tree, and now it's in, which it didn't used to be, it's now in alphabetical order, which is fantastic. And from that tree, you're able to go in. You might recognize that you've got fixed finance, fixed assets, and these replicate your modules on your side. And then as you go in, I'm looking at payables because obviously it's an AP role that I'm looking at. Within those, you've got the different screens within the AP. So you should recognize some of them. You've got batch payments, your bills and adjustments. You've got your suppliers further down, which is great, quick checks. So within these, and I'm going to go to suppliers in here. When I click on the suppliers, we've then got all the fields within the actual suppliers. So if I just jump into here onto the payables and into suppliers, you should be able to see a correlation between these items here and the supplier fields within here. I'd also like you to take note that in the URL, you have your screen ID as AP3000. When you hover over any of these, you'll see now you get the AP303000, which tells you you're in the right screen. So there's none of this sort of, that wasn't there before either, so there's none of the guessing anymore. You're actually able to see quite clearly that you're in the right screen. So one of the many things that people will want to do is that they don't want people or users, people inputting their AP invoices to be able to change bank accounts. At the moment, if I put in the AP clerk access and access to functions, I can see that under suppliers and under the payment detail type, it says inherited. If I click on suppliers at the top levels, it goes also inherited. So if I go up to AP, it's telling me that the system has granted access. Now we've got various types of these access rights that we can give. So we've got the three there. So at the top level, you've got not set, revoked, and granted. And this is set at a level for areas within the business modules and being able to access different screens within here. If you want to go to an actual form level, which is where we drill down, I'll go back down to suppliers. You can see the access right status changes to inherited, which means it's from the level above, revoked, which means they haven't got access, view only, which is pretty obvious, edit, which means they can go in and edit, insert means they can add a record, and then they've got delete, which means basically that they have full access to the system. If ever you're in here and you're trying to look at it and you press the help button, you'll be able to find that you've actually got these written here. So sometimes getting your head around that, they're all there for you in the actual help. So say, for example, I decided that I didn't want my AP clerk to have access to be changing the actual accounts. You might think I'm just going to change it in here and I'm going to say, no, don't do that. What I'd like you to do, if you were going to do it, is you're just going to copy the role and create a new role. What this means is if you're sat playing with a role and you're trying to work things out and make sure it all works for yourself and your business, is that if it all goes wrong, you've got the initial starter there right at the beginning, so you can go back and start again. Very easy to copy the role. You literally copy role, you create the new name and click on copy. But here's one that I made earlier. So here I've named the role AP Clerk, no bank. And that means it's got access to the AP functions except the supplier details. Now, if you see what I've done down here when we go to the suppliers, is that I've changed that supplier to view only. So this should mean that when we go into this supplier, when this user goes into the supplier, they'll only be able to view only. So how do I apply that to a user? So if I go back, we've now got this new function called user types. If I go back to the user here, you might have seen that is in here. The user type is a really useful tool, especially when you've got lots and lots of employers, because that means that you can actually set a profile up. And with the profile, just if you have a new member of staff come on board, you can select the user type, and then you know that their level of access is going to be the same from a prior employer. So to create a new user type, very simple, you click on plus, you add in your name. So I've given it to Demo App. I've made this an employee. You can have a contact, which would be somebody, if you had a customer who could access your site through the portal, then you'd be able to put them as a contact, but this is an employee. And I've just made this Demo App because I'm actually in our demo site and I'm probably going to delete it. So that's, you name it something that means something to yourself. So what I can then do is I can add in the roles. Now you do need to know the roles that you need, but you can select the roles from the list of roles that's available here. What it means is instead of having to go through and find out the ones, especially when you've got all those duplicate ones that you've made, you can just type in the name that you want when I find it again. So if I want to add anything else to this, I can add it in. If I want that to be a default, and no matter what I want them to have that access, I can click the box here, or I can leave it blank. What that means is that when I go into the user and I go pick up that new user type, it just gives me the roles that they need. If I decide that I want this AP Clerk to have access to the bank functions, I can swap between these or take them off. So to see how that changes and to see it in action, I'm just going to go and have another one that I made earlier. So this is in a different browser, so test user. If I just go back to here, you can see I've selected that the AP Clerk can actually change the bank details. I'm going to sign in. Click on payables. If I go to the suppliers and select a supplier, under the payments, I can change the bank details and add them in. Save that one. So this is where I could actually change these bank details, and obviously that's something I didn't want to happen. So I'm going to log out, and I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to change this AP Clerk so that she can't change the bank details. I'm going to click on save. We'll bring her back in. I'm going to log in. And if I click on payment, I can see them, but I can't change them. So you can see how simple it is to be able to assign and change those roles. And if I decided that we had a new user and somebody else came on board and we were creating a new user, I could easily, if you just watch the screen, this is an administrator. If I decide that they are now an AP Clerk, very easily they've got their access that they need to do their role. Just a few other features while we're in here. I'm just going to bring up my test lady again. In the user types, obviously gives you the, like all these roles do with the users, but it also means that you can actually add in the login rules. So this means that whenever you're setting up a new user, you can say that they automatically need to reset the password. You can put their they would always be unrestricted. They wouldn't really have API or UI. You would keep them restricted. In the very rare occasions, you may turn off the two-factor authentication, but just be aware that it is becoming mandatory and towards the end of the year. And you might need to require a login activation. Does anybody have any questions about that? I'll just stop there. No. Cool. So the other thing that being able to do, so if you're going to try that and set those up, you will find it a lot quicker to set up for your new employees. So the other thing that I wanted to bring on board was being able to access the audit trail. So if I go into payables, and if I go into the suppliers, just say that. We have this function within the suppliers where we can, if you've got audit, if you need to have the availability to actually look at the audit trail, you've got tools and you can put your audit history in here. So this is the way that this is telling me that Brian Jones created this, the date he created, and that he made changes. And the changes of these are the actual changes that have been made. So if things have been ticked or not ticked, this will be where they've been unticked or ticked. So if he's clicked send remittances by email, it means that previously it wouldn't have been ticked. But just go in and I made a change. So say, for example, I made a change to this telephone number. Don't know who that is, I've just made that up. If I go back into the audit history, you'll see that there isn't a change to say that I've made that change there. The reason is that when we actually configure your system, one of the things that we will do is that we put some of the actual audit trails in there automatically for you, so that we think the ones that you need the most. As with all of the system, when we configure the system is about configuring it to your needs. So if you decide there's an area that you are wanting to look at, then certainly you can add in these fields. However, just be aware they will actually use your system memory, and that you will need to and can make your system slower. So it's not a case of going in and what I show you now, you're not going to switch on them all, because otherwise you'll be slowing the system right down and wondering why you can't do your work. There's two functions to be able to go see this. When you're in audit history in here, if there's no history, you have the option to turn on the field. I'm just going to bring on another set of. However, if you type in at the top here, audit history, audit, it does bring up this horrendous looking form. And this is part of the reason people look at this and think they don't understand it. So this is why I wanted to show people how to find things and how things are happening. If we go back into here, you can put the screen ID. So we know what the screen ID is, because the screen ID was up here in this screen. So it's always in your URL with the screen ID referencing. So I've put that in there. If I was looking for a certain user, then I can click on the user and we can go find the user to see what the user had changed if we know what the user is. If I clear the filter, it actually gives me all of the suppliers that we've got. So I searched on that supplier that I changed. And down here, we've got the details of what was modified. So if I go back in, I might just go back again and go back in. So if I go into the clothing company, what was it? It's called supplier ID clothing. It's telling me that there's no details, but here it's also telling me what we can actually see. So in it's not going to do. So if I wanted to have a look at the address, it would tell me that I had actually changed the address here, at what time and what date. If I wanted to look at a different table, the business account, then it would bring these different tables in. So the tables relate to the different areas within the company, but within the screen. So if I wanted to look at payment detail type, it would tell me who had created it, and if there'd been any changes, they would be written down here.
2 minutes, Nicola.
Thank you. The other area that you'll be able to see is also this access history. So access history is in user security under access history. If you're trying to find out who's been in a particular field, or what time somebody's been on, or all kinds of data. I've used this for finding out what's been changed on the screen and who's changed it, or if anybody uses a particular form. I can select a username. I can select a period. So if I wanted to know who had logged on this week, I can quite easily search and look at the login. I can also look at when somebody's failed. So if anybody's failed, not being able to go in, and it will give me a reason here why they've failed. So that's useful when if somebody's saying they can't get into the system, you're able to go and check, and it'll tell you they've got invalid credentials. They might not have even signed in, which suggests that they're using the wrong user ID. You can see what screens people have accessed. And when you go for a screen access, your best bet is to be looking for the whether or not in here it contains AP 303030. And nobody's given that access. That's because I've typed that too tight. Still not coming up great. There you go. So this is telling me when I've accessed those screens that start with AP. So again, if you've got a specific screen that you want to go and have a look at, if you want to be able to see who's been accessing bank details, who's been accessing payroll, this is a good way to be able to go and actually view what you've got. When you first go into these screens, it is always a bit difficult. They can be a bit daunting. But I do stress that if you are trying to find things out, if you are wanting to look at the audit trails of people, they're quite easy to do. So if you've got auditors coming in and they want to see who's done the bank statements, again, you can create the screen, pick up the bank's employee banking details, and select a period, say from the 1st of October 2000, so if it's a financial year. Today, we haven't got anybody who's going to put any employee details in. That's great. I didn't test that one before I came on. Then you're able to show your auditors exactly who's accessed what screens, rather than having to do extensive reports or going to each individual user. I am going to stop there so we catch up a little bit. Does anybody have any questions? I know I say it's quite a big subject, but I just wanted to sort of give you an introduction to it so you can actually try and go and have a look and use them, because they're very valuable, particularly when you're trying to manage a large team or trying to make things easier when you're actually onboarding new staff.
Thanks, Nicola. And as you can see there with what Nicola has shown you, the security options for Advanced are quite sophisticated. We do like customers to be able to manage some of that themselves, be able to create new users and make sure they have the right role. And as Nicola mentioned, if you're doing it for the first time, we strongly recommend do it in test. And then once you're happy with that, you can do it in live. All right, so our final speaker today is Chris Miller, Director at Velixo. For those of you who don't know, Velixo is an Excel-based BI reporting tool for MYOB Advanced, but it's actually a lot more than that. And Chris is going to show you some of those things now.
Thanks, Al. Most appreciated. Good afternoon, everybody. Please see us as just as an extension of Momentum. We might be external, but the support we get is phenomenal. You're always the Momentum customer, and we work through Momentum and with Momentum to deliver Velixo. I see a lot of very familiar names in the list of people, and thank you for your continued support on Velixo. For those that I don't know, or I hope to know you all very soon, I hope you all have Velixo. I'm going to take you through, I've got 15 minutes today, and I'm just going to take you through a couple of things. Firstly, remind you for sort of 5 minutes what Velixo is all about as a tool. And then the second part is taking you through and just talking you through applications of Velixo that people have not even thought that it can be used. This is just a reporting tool, but it's not. It's that phenomenally powerful. And just before I even get into all the things that are there, I'd like you to just keep in the back of your mind the following. Any decently written and well-written Velixo report should be dynamic. And by that I mean, if you add a new GL account, if you add a new cost code, if you add another cost code or something in the system, it doesn't really matter what you add, it should come into your reports without even worrying. And that works really well because in Excel 365, there's a thing called a dynamic array. It's dynamic in nature. The items will come into your reports. So that's the first part of a well-written report. The second part is that the reports have to be three-dimensional. You want to look at another period, you don't have to go out and change the period and then regenerate the report, change the period. It'll change in front of you. It's essentially a massive cube of data. Okay, so if you keep that in the back of your mind, then as we go through, you will start seeing applications of this in your business. Okay, so recapping, the delivery of Velixo is via Excel. It's a ribbon in Excel. It's not a manual dump of data. It's completely integrated. And that's very, very important to remember. And the first part that I've never seen in any other tool is the security from MYOB Advanced, which just some of the stuff that Nicola's just gone through is quite phenomenal. And that flows into Velixo. So if you can't see something advanced, you will not get it in your report. Simple as that. Okay, so that's important. It's also integrated that you can drill out of your report straight back down to a source document in MYOB Advanced, to the account, to whatever you want to see. So the integration is really two-way. Okay. With this tool, you have access to all data. So David, probably the most eloquent and succinct presentation that I've heard on CRM, really good. But all your CRM data is available to you. All your payroll data you can write reports on if you can get to that data via your security. But just think of that. Here's a tool that anything can be done. It's Excel based. You've all got the skills. So that's important to note. So it's got anything in it because you can write a GI on anything in MYOB Advanced. Okay. The start though is from a financial perspective, it's got a whole lot of financial and project functions. So you can build those reports literally, in 10, 15 minutes, you can start getting those reports out without any hassles. And, it's easy to test because we can give you a trial on your license, a little bit of help, and you'll be away and racing, certainly on the simple stuff. For some people, the simple stuff is all they need. They just need project and financial reporting. Okay. When I say that you can do anything, you literally can. Any reporting and any analysis is available through this tool of the data in your MYOB Advanced. Okay. Now, in the next part of the presentation, when I get there, I'm going to talk a bit more about the ledgers, because there's so much information in companies that is held in spreadsheets. So the whole aim of this tool is cut out that manual work in spreadsheets, have one source of the truth, keep it in your MYOB Advanced database, and now you've got a system that, one, doesn't get corrupted, two, people are secure in how they can access the data, and the data doesn't disappear. Okay. Then Velixo 7, and anybody who Googles Velixo 7 and looks at the Velixo YouTube channel, you'll see that there's a new thing that came in August. And that is the ability to write back any data into MYOB Advanced. In addition, soft copies of documents can be attached to those transactions as you write them back in the system. And that's produces a whole new way of doing things. If you wanted to do a mass document upload, you could do it with Velixo. So just touching on those, it's not just a reporting tool. Because you can write things back in, you can do all sorts of things with it. And that is key. And once again, the skill set is Excel. All right, thanks, Morgan. The next slide. Okay. All right, so what you've got with Velixo, just talking through applications, many sites have got direct links from Excel to your MYOB Advanced data. And they're done by some people who've probably got really good skills, but they're slow. And why are they slow? Because you have to dump everything into Excel and then filter it to get it to work. All right. Velixo has a thing in it called the GI and the GI filter functions. And the GI filter allows you to pass a filter to a report or to the data on extract. So we've got a case in South Australia where the quantum of time saved is probably, let's call it 18-20 minutes down to 30 seconds. And that is phenomenal. So those filter functions together with the GI are really powerful. But that GI function allows you to pull any data out. You can write a GI on anything, so a generic inquiry, on anything in the system, so you can get that data out. And they are just so phenomenally powerful. When they do come out, they come out in a dynamic form into dynamic array. And dynamic arrays are what's called scalar aware. So you can link these arrays. So you can build a trial balance with six formulas. So that is the power of these things. The second one I'd like to touch on is, as I said before, the use of the stat and budget ledgers. We find we go into systems and people have got a budget ledger and then they do a forecast and they overwrite their budget or they put it somewhere else. You can have as many budget ledgers as you like. And there's a tool within Velixo that lets you write back straight to that ledger at the click of a button. So when you're doing your forecasting, do it that way. From a point of view using the stat ledger is holding non-financial information. As an example, we have a massive pastoral company in New South Wales. They have about 40 farms, and on their board pack, they need to see rainfall. So in a stat ledger, they hold their predicted rainfall and their actual rainfall, and that appears in their board report as a table. And that just comes straight out of MYOB Advanced. Hotels, big hotel groups holding their numbers of rooms, which is the source of all efficiency calculations in the hotel and hospitality sort of industry from that point of view. So they're really powerful, and Velixo facilitates the writing back of data to those ledgers. Okay, and once you've got the data back in, pulling it out then becomes the click of a button. Okay. We've currently done a massive job for somebody who have many stock items, and they adjust their stock pricing, and they wanted to then go and change everything on the fly in MYOB Advanced, and that's what they do through Velixo, and it writes those adjustments back into the database, and the new price list is done, and that saves days, if not hours, if not days. The next item, that populating custom tables, you can have custom tables added into Advanced, and yes, it's a process to do that, and yes, you'll need Momentum to assist you with that. However, consider the following. A customer of ours has information sitting in the government website that nobody can access, and they need the balances out of that information, it's NDIS information, in order to do their customer statements. So what they were doing is they were downloading a CSV file and then manually producing all their statements. It took them about 4 days of the month. What they've got now is they download their CSV file, copy it straight into an Excel report, push one button, and it's written back into a custom table. They open the next report, and run a macro, and it produces all the statements, stops in the middle, gives them time to just check them and look over them, push the next button, bang, they're all emailed. So literally the time taken to push those buttons is a minute or two. The time for checking is maybe half an hour. And then after that, everything's done. So you've saved days using that. And that's just a real, a different use of Velixo that people didn't consider. And all these uses are all about creating efficiency. And if we can create efficiency, make your life easy, save you time, then this thing pays for itself. If I save an hour for everybody, it pays for itself. Okay. On the YouTube channel, there's a video done by James Wishart from Velixo in Canada, the guy who wrote the product, on using Excel as a quoting tool. And it takes you through, in so many companies, Excel is the tool of choice for doing quotes. And guys do the quotes and then take them back to the office, and somebody goes and turns that quote into a quote within MYOB Advanced, and that's the way it's done. But with this, you literally do your quoting, you finish it, hit the button, it writes it all back into Advanced, and it's there. You can email a copy to your client. So a very, very powerful application that most people would never think of using a reporting tool for. Okay. And then I'm going to come back to the last one, that is your dynamic reporting with Velixo again. It is so powerful. People spend hours and hours manually manipulating information in board packs and in management reporting on a monthly basis, sometimes on a weekly basis. And in the Velixo customers that we've got, mostly, that's all completely automated. The structure that you've got of MYOB Advanced is just phenomenal through your account classes, through your 30 dimensions and your sub-accounts. It just all smacks to really, really powerful reporting and analysis. And the distribution of those all happen with Velixo. So you can distribute those to people in different forms, whether they've got a Velixo license or they don't have a license. And really, really, really powerful side, and the automation is what it's all about. Okay, Morgan, next slide, please. Okay, from our point of view, please, as I said before, just see us as an extension of Momentum, and you can contact your account manager, your consultant, Brian, anybody at Momentum, and we're always happy to assist as well. You can contact me directly. There's my mobile number and my email address. And I just reiterate at the end, please, you're always the Momentum customer, and we do assist all our business partners in creating reporting, do a lot of the consulting work, and we are business analysts, and that's all we do. We don't sell ERP systems. We don't do anything else. We analyze data. And any questions from anybody? Thanks, Al.
Thank you very much, Chris. Just conscious of time, we have run over a bit this afternoon, so appreciate everybody staying with us for the session this afternoon. I think we covered a hell of a lot of content, and the intention from our perspective is that you learn something from it that you can take away and use in your business, as well as have awareness of all of the amazing number of improvements that will be happening in MYOB Advanced over the coming months, and also complementary solutions like Velixo. So thank you very much for attending. Thank you particularly to Morgan for a huge amount of effort in preparing for and executing these forums. Well done. And if you do have any questions, feel free to ask away. Otherwise, shoot us an email later and we can answer them at any time. Thanks for attending.
Thank you very much.